Hello, Joe.
Hi.
It's me, Daniel, and then Joe. We're going to talk about what we consider advanced philosophy, and I'll describe mine a little bit first, since it's kind of easy to describe. When we when we're living, our sensations produce our values, and the essence of life is to have values, unless they're like bacteria or something. But most animals, they value things, they want things, they have instincts, they have desires, and that kind of thing is what makes life meaningful. And we were wondering what Joe would consider the advanced philosophy, and yeah, you can talk about that now.
Well, see, to me, advanced philosophy has to take into account more than a single point of view.
Needs lots of integration with humanity.
Yes, you've got to look at everybody's point of view. You've got to start integrating. We have much more in common than we think we do. We all want pretty much the same thing. We want safety. We want a better life for our children. We want adequate food. We want adequate clean water. And philosophy has to be the way to reach a world mental stability that works towards that. Like you should be saying, it's one thing to say everybody should have enough food. That's fine. That's a motherhood statement, we call it. Yes, but how are we going to get there? Philosophize about it, and you sit there and you say, well, we could do this, we could do that, but philosophy is basically a dead thing. It has to have life breathed into it. You can't have a philosophy that does not include action. Otherwise, what is the point of it?
But action requires motivation. That's why I'm saying advanced philosophy is going to be about motivation and values and stuff.
Well, I think if you're looking at creating an advanced philosophy, you're already motivated. You know
But
what
it
I mean?
requires motivation also.
Well, it does, but it's not for you. It's you've got to. That's why I say bring in all these other people because it has to motivate them. It has to give them a reason to believe that this is a good idea, that this can work, that world peace is possible. We don't have to take this crap anymore. We can settle our differences and get about saving the world that we're spending so much time destroying. And advanced philosophy would take that into account, that we have to start being responsible for what we do. Right now we do things and we don't take responsibility. We go, well, the next generation is going to clean it up. Well, there isn't very many more next generations. We've got about 1,000 years before we run out of everything. I mean, by that I mean there'll be 20 billion people on a globe that doesn't have the ability to feed the 7 billion we have now. How, is it going to take a plague? And then our philosophy is going to be, let's not get that big again? You know, Philosophy has to be far-reaching. It has to look to the future. It has to set goals. It has to want to motivate people to achieve more for themselves and for the world, the planet that surrounds us. If it doesn't, then it's not philosophy, it's ideals, or ideologue, where one guy stands up and says, well, I know how to do this. Well, no, one guy doesn't know how to do it all. Or, you know what, we'd already fixed everything. It takes a bunch of people to make it work. It takes everybody working in the same direction, working for the same goals, and that's what philosophy is, the idea.
Well, I have a question. What are some people that are impossible? What do you do about that?
Well, there are always going to be the people who will, badmouth an idea, badmouth a situation, and all they're looking for is attention. The last thing you do is give them that attention. If 90% of the world says let's try this, and 10% say don't, well then they can stand still, but the rest of us have to move on. We can't trash the world and our lives because 10% of the population thinks that it's too hard. And that's really what it comes down to. People want immediate gratification. They want immediate results, and philosophy doesn't give you that. Philosophy gives you goals to strive for that you will never get to, but you continue to strive
It's
towards
like a
them.
direction.
Yes,
Instead of a limited road, it's a direction
Yeah.
you keep going.
because if your philosophy ends in 10 years, it wasn't philosophy, it was just a goal.
Yeah.
And motherhood statements like, make sure everybody has enough food. Well, fine, but how do we do that? How do we go about that? Can we philosophy has to take into consideration GMOs, genetic modified organisms. People say, I want to know when something's been genetically modified. Well, I got some bad news for everybody. Everything has already been genetically modified. Everything. Take a look at the picture of steers from the 1800s. They don't look anything much like the cattle we have now because they've been genetically modified to be bigger, fatter, more meat. Turkeys, wild turkeys fly and they have small breasts. You genetically modify turkeys so they have the big breasts, the big white meat that everybody loves. Everything has been genetically modified. We don't, they say it's Frankenstein. It's not. It's just plain old ordinary science. I mean, you can't. I mean, all the seeds in the world, wheat, oats, whatever, the original seeds are stored about 250 feet underground in a bunker so that if something goes wrong, we have the original seed to go back to.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
It's there for that very reason, that we modified everything so much that it's not the original anymore. It's like, I've been talking to a few science colleagues of mine, and they talk about colonizing Mars. Okay, that's a philosophy. We want to expand the human race and take it to new heights. Well, see, the problem with that is once we got a colony on Mars, after the first couple of generations, we can never go there again. They will have changed because the gravity situation is different there, the atmosphere situation is different there. After a couple of generations, a cold virus will kill them off.
Because it was a sterile environment?
That's right, because it wasn't there when they were born and they never got it and it was never passed on to them. We know that once we set up a colony on Mars, after the first year or two of supplying them, they're going to have to be on their own because things are going to start to change. Children are going to get born, and those children are not going to be like us. They're going to be very different. The gravity is lighter. They'll probably be taller. The sunlight is much less there, so very likely their eyes are going to change to handle the less light. The temperature is colder, so they're going to become hardier people. We won't recognize them in 100 years or 1,000 years.
Okay, I think we're going a little bit off topic.
Well, no, because it's part of that philosophy. I mean, once you start something, sometimes you can't take it back.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Sometimes you can't go back and fix it. It's too late. It's done. It's over. And that's why philosophy teaches us that, or should teach us, that growth is the only experience that is worth living. Change is coming. There's no stopping it. Change is coming. But whether or not you grow to meet the challenge of that change is philosophy. That is you deciding to grow as a person, to learn more, to read more, to say more, to stand up and be counted. That's a philosophy.
I think I was talking to Jared just a few days ago, and we were saying, well, what generally, general philosophy is about questions, but advanced philosophy is about answers. What do you think about that?
I got to disagree with that. I mean,
really?
In total, yeah, because your new philosophy shouldn't have all the answers. Because then it's not a philosophy, it becomes a writ. It becomes canonized, like the Bible. It doesn't change.
Oh.
If you got all the answers, what are we philosophizing about? See, it doesn't work. There will always be more questions. There will always be need for more growth. When you stop growing, when you stop learning, when you stop observing and being part of what is going on around you, then it all falls apart.
Okay. I think I understand what you mean.
So philosophy should be driving what we do now. It's not for us. We inherited the old philosophy of how things work. It doesn't work. The next philosophy has to be much more broad and changing and malleable.
Oh, okay.
It needs to provide answers, but not the last answer. The answer for today is not going to be the same as the answer in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Things change. Science changes. The world changes. Space-time changes. Everything changes. So one answer isn't going to work. I mean, at one point, the sun revolved around the earth. And that's what they believed. So the philosophy was God created us, and we are the center of the universe.
So you're talking earlier about something like practical knowledge. Is that what you were talking about before?
I think so.
Practicality it's a philosophical word. Practical
Yeah.
means different things to different people, but
And it should. Because again, if one answer fits all questions, then we must not have very many questions.
okay.
The questions should never end. I mean, the younger generation coming up should always question what it is we have done and what we said and how we set our sights. And if you don't set your sights high enough, then, they'll know it. Because they're going to be living in the mess that we left, like we are living in the mess that the generation before left. And what a mess we're leaving for the next one. Our philosophy isn't one of change and growth. It's a philosophy of greed and collection. And
Lies too.
When what?
And lies.
And lies, yeah. It's all part of it. Greed and corruption. It's all the same. You can't. That's what destroys philosophy. Philosophy is the better part of man. The Bible has a basic philosophy, which is do unto others as you would have done unto you. How many people follow that philosophy? Very few. Almost none, if you get right down to it. I mean, people don't want to get involved. So their philosophy ends the minute, their Christian philosophy ends the minute it's required that they do something.
This other guy online, he said that politics destroys philosophy. Do you think that's true or not?
I think the two have to learn to work together better.
But if you
But I
get
don't
all
think they destroy each other, no. I think philosophy is what drove politics for a long time.
oh,
FDR,
but doesn't that screw up the philosophy too to be political?
No, because that's how you take the actions necessary to reach some of the goals. FDR's philosophy was basically, let's make the world a better place. Let's worry about the people we've got and see to their needs and everything else. Dwight Eisenhower's philosophy was taxation. He wanted to tax corporations 90%.
Oh wow.
But that's on their profit. Unless they were investing it back into the company, hiring more people, and creating a better society, he was going to tax them, and he did at 90%. But the greedy guys take over, and they say, "Oh no, let's get that down to about 2%. That's all we need to be taxed," and that's where they're headed. The worker has to make it up. That's a bad philosophy because we don't make the kind of money that they do.
Any last words? I think we've covered this a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, if people don't know the difference between philosophy and ideals and goals, they should learn them because they're not always the same thing. Motherhood statements are not a philosophy.
Okay.
Peace is best. Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes it can't be achieved without war.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. And so that doesn't make it a philosophy. It makes it a short-term goal. So you've got to stop and start thinking about more than next year, more than 5 years. You've got to start thinking 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. What are we leaving behind? What kind of mess are we going to leave for the next 3 generations?
Okay, that's it?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks again.
No problem.